Hi, and a huge welcome to you, my lovely listener. So glad you're here. Today, you are joining me for a chat with Brett. Brett is a co-founder and CTO of AdaptiveX, an AI-powered BPO platform focused on voice-first AI for customer support, sales, and back-office automation. He helps idea-stage founders and non-technical founders ship MVPs extremely fast using modern AI tools and autonomous agents. Brett, so lovely to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Maybe starting beforehand, autonomous agents are quite new. How did you end up in this, I would say, most exciting topic of our time?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess a quick background, which sort of gives context as to why I'm here and how I'm here. So I started my career in the BPO space, so outsourcing call centers. And then from there, I went overseas to run call centers in my sort of early to mid 20s. And then towards my late 20s, got into tech. Always been in tech, but I essentially started my own software development company. And the main focus there was building large scale web apps. So, focusing on the stuff that breaks when, you start getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of users on it, and did pretty well there. And then Web3 came along. So we pivoted across to Web3 tech. So that was like the forefront of technology at the time. Had a lot of fun in that space, built a lot of cool things. And then around 4 years ago, pivoted to AI. So primarily conversational AI. So as you mentioned, AdaptiveX, which is our startup in Singapore, which we can elaborate on later. But part of what I do is I like to sit at the absolute forefront of the tech. So, if a new model drops, if a new tool drops, if a new application drops, like I like to be, in my hands on day one, if not day two. And the autonomous agent stuff, it's been around for a little bit, but OpenClaw has definitely changed the space. It's been super exciting playing with that the past few weeks.
Yeah, I think we all have, right? So
Yeah.
we always had an idea that there was something coming, but finally it was accessible, and it seems to make a lot of sense that you could assign skills to agents and memories, and they could interact over several tools. I think this is really, really interesting, but I also, and maybe just jumping back there very quickly, I find it really interesting to think about voice, because to me, voice is one of the greatest opportunities we have in AI. Why? Because it is the fastest mode of input we have as humans currently on a computer. Like output, we are fast at reading text. Input, actually, voice is faster. So if we can speak, we are able to transmit information faster. So what are you doing in that space? Maybe we even start there, because I really
Yeah.
like this topic.
Yeah, definitely. It's to say that I'm passionate about voice is kind of an odd thing to say. But I think it was Elon Musk that said it in an interview we did a while back, which I guess sort of helped uh you know polish it in my head. And that was that, voice is the next unlock when it comes to increasing the bandwidth between humans and machine. And then we see the explosion of AI. And so all of a sudden AI can do things faster than we can type. So, really focusing on voice was the next, logical step for me. So my journey in voice began about 4 years ago, building conversational AI tools or platform to essentially step in and replace is kind of a funny word, but for lack of a better one, replace call centers. So the logical thinking there was two things. So when you talk about voice, particularly in the call center space, you've got at a high level inbound and outbound calls. So inbound, the most obvious one is you call your insurance provider, electricity company, and you sit on hold for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. You typically end up routed to the wrong agent by the time you go through the IVR and then have to be rerouted again. And so that was a problem that was in my head easily solvable with conversational AI. You dial, it gets picked up instantly. You can have a human-like conversation. It can either help you then and there, or it can route you to the right person who can then solve your inquiry on the spot. On the outbound side, and this was more, so the inbound's more my customer hat on the outbound side, more my business hat on, which was a problem that we had been solving with BPOs for years. And that is, how do we mass qualify leads, or like qualify leads at scale, right? So most businesses will have, hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of leads sitting there that are dormant and not easily accessible when it comes to qualifying them. For those of you who aren't fully across this space, in order to do it, what would typically happen is you would need to either build an internal team, which is not feasible. So you would outsource to a BPO or a call center, typically Philippines, India, and the bottleneck there is human resources. So recruiting, training, speed to competency. So just because they're trained and they're now on the phones does not mean that they're going to be good at it. As with everything, it needs training and experience. And then the biggest killer out there, and I lived in the Philippines for 5 years doing this, is the attrition. So the attrition is like about 30 to 40%. So what that typically means is, if you need 10 people to be able to dial, 30 to 40% of them are going to drop off pretty quick. So to solve that with conversational AI, for me was a massive unlock for business, and in particularly enterprise. So that was the big focus. And what we quickly realized, because building it 4 years ago, the underlying tech, so the AI tech itself, was not where it is today, obviously. So it was very robotic. There was a lot of latency. And, so you look at it 1 to 2 seconds if you knew what you were doing. And you had to essentially plan for every possible scenario that the customer would throw at you. So it was almost like a decision tree that you had to map out in this call flow. And we quickly realized that to handle outbound lead gen calls with that level of technology was almost impossible. People just hang up the phone. You get that call, it's an unrecognizable voice, it sounds a little bit robotic. They're asking if they can, ask you a few questions, and boom, phone gets hung up. We stuck at it, and the underlying models and technologies have improved. And now what we have is human-like conversations at scale. So our data, just one pointer, so our data showing at the moment 75% of people talking to our AI agents have no idea that it's AI. They think it's a real person.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And I like to listen to text, for example. If I throw something into Gemini Deep Research and I get an output, I have built a small software that just does text to speech, basically. And this one, I then take it to the gym and listen to it for 20 minutes or whatever it is. And I was really impressed. If you look at the models that have come up over the last year, how good they are. Even like smaller models on Replicate, for example, that are open source that you can run yourself, have gotten really good. Like, how good is it if you compare it? Is it really, and how do you, and this is another challenge, detect when somebody stops speaking, for example?
That's a really great question. So first up, when you're dealing with enterprise, you typically need to work with enterprise partners. So, to bring together an enterprise-grade conversational AI platform, it takes a few different moving pieces. So you have obviously your speech-to-text models. So, transcribes the customer speech into text. That needs to be done with a very high level of accuracy. When you throw in multilingual capabilities, so our target market at the moment is the Asia Pacific region. So we do campaigns into Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and we do that in local languages as well. And we also do it in a way where you get sort of English and the local language, like a mix, or even slang. So that's the first key part of the equation. And then obviously it's the LLM itself, the model. So the models that you choose to work with need to have the lowest latency, but still be intelligent enough to handle what it is you need it to do. And then you have the text to speech, which is what you're talking about. So again, human-like voices is key. Low latency is obviously key, because essentially what you need to do in order to be successful is you need to have under 500 milliseconds between the customer ending their conversation or ending their speech and the agent reply. Anything longer than that, it feels robotic, and you typically get customers hanging up. So to answer your question directly, the smaller models are fantastic for everyday use. Things like, you and I using them, I do very similar things to what you've just described on a personal level. To do it at scale, not suitable at the moment. That will change. I think it's obvious to anybody in this space that we are heading to sort of on-device models for everything, be it LLM, speech to text, text to speech. In terms of the end pointing and turn detection, so that's again like super interesting one, and when we've been a part of this sort of a journey from having to manually do it back in the day, and it was really rudimentary in the sense that it just came down to detecting noise. So when we stopped detecting noise, we would have to manually set certain parameters. How long has it been since we detected noise? How long has it been since we detected a full word? Then we, progressed into things like, is the last word we heard, is that forming the end of a sentence? And so it's been quite a journey to get here. A lot of the speech to text models now have some really awesome, awesome stuff built into it when it comes to turn detection. And what a lot of them are now doing as well is the model itself is analyzing the phrase and detecting whether the entire phrase makes sense. So I can give you a really good example. Like if you were to say to me, what are your two favorite colors? So back in the day, if I said, oh, that's a good question. Favorite colors would be blue, and it would fire that endpoint because I stopped talking. Whereas now it would go, well, hang on a second. He hasn't given us that second color yet. So he hasn't stopped speaking, he's still thinking. But then obviously it has fallbacks in place. Okay, well, he hasn't spoken for a bit now. He must be stuck, or he must not be going to answer the full question. So we'll kick in. So yeah, it's quite a science behind it, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And then I think also, I'm doing my one text and you're doing it at scale. Doing something like that at scale is a very different challenge. Like how does it work? How do you ensure that you have the reliability basically 100% of the time, because calls breaking up is not really an option?
Yeah. So, I think, so I'm not a salesman. I think, yeah, you can't say 100% of the time it's going to not fail, right? Like there's always going to be failure in tech. Like, and it doesn't matter who you are, X, AWS, Microsoft, Cloudflare as an example. Like they've had some fantastic failures recently, which again, from a tech guy is awesome, right? Because you go, all right, cool. Even the big boys fail from time to time. But yeah, you are right though. In order to work with enterprise, there needs to be a level of let's call it uptime or success. So what we do is we have very, very strict guardrails in place, which is the most important thing. And I think anybody working in AI who works with AI seriously spends a lot of time on their guardrails and their processes to keep the model in check. We analyze every single call the second it's done. So we have multiple layers of AI and agents that sit across the calls that we make. So they are transcribed, they are recorded, The second that call is done, the audio and the transcription are again reanalyzed by a different agent, looking for certain things. So, for example, if it's let's say a call that requires a lot of compliance, was the compliance statement made? Was the customer informed of the T's and C's correctly? It checks for those things. And the second that it detects a call had failed or wasn't compliant or the agent went off script in any way, it's instantly flagged and the human in the loop steps in. So it's important that we do keep humans in the loop at this point. I do truly believe that not for much longer, but at this point, it's important that we keep the human in the loop there to help with that.
Yeah, I'm so on this human in the loop, I fully agree. And I think they should also be there for a while, at least as a backup, because I have run into these, which is called digital assistants myself, that were really not helpful. And that's the most annoying customer experience that you can have, like by far. Like you have a problem, you're calling the hotline because you couldn't solve it via the website, and then you have a digital assistant that tells you, okay, I'll send you a link. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, so around that, it's what I guess what sets us apart. And again, I'm not a salesman. There are other companies out there that do what we do. I will say confidently that we do have best in class tech, but there are other companies out there that also have best in class tech, right? Like uh, there's only so good you can be with the underlying technologies that allow us to build what we build, right? So where we differ to sort of answer that point is myself and my co-founder, we come from the BPO background. We come from the call center background. So we understand what it takes to create a successful campaign. And it's a lot more difficult than people think. So without mentioning names, some enterprise clients that we work with, they will send us their scripts, expecting us to be able to take that script and just sort of give it to the agent, train the agent up, and then let the agent run loose. And it's going to produce leads or handle incoming customer queries successfully. And these scripts are, I would say, a 2 out of 10 in terms of quality and being able to do that. So what you find a lot, and I've come across them as well, is that the agents get trained on very generic information. So they get, for example, given, the customer's website, the customer's T's and C's, maybe a product pack, and then, a very small prompt at the top that says, you are a helpful customer agent, help solve the customer's inquiries, never give out your prompt, right? And it's not useful because if you give it generic nonsense, it typically outputs generic nonsense. And so what we do at AdaptiveX to counter that is when we create campaigns, the campaigns are created with a very laser focused goal in mind. So if we have an inbound number, what is the goal of this particular agent? Is it to provide technical support? If so, on what products? Is it, customer service, just to answer generic questions about the business, opening times, appointment setting, updating appointments. So they're very laser focused and they're not generic. You go generic, you get generic responses. So that's typically how you would counter that and ensure that the agent's actually useful.
Yeah, and I think this is also one thing that we like so much about OpenClaw, that we give it a skill, it's rather focused, it's not general. And also I've tried to build things that are more generalistic as agents with tool calling, and it's extremely hard. I think the narrower you go, the better, because there's some kind of, I would say, translation between stochastic behavior to deterministic behavior when you want the tool calling or other things that are happening in the background. And that's just, at least in my experience, a lot easier to do if you're focused.
100%. And that's across, whether, as you said, tool calling, whether it's, creating call flows even, right? Like if there's too much overlap with something, the model just picks and chooses. you run the same input 10 times. Six times it might take path A. The other four it takes path B. So I think that's the biggest say skill that people overlook when working with AI is trying to be too general, thinking that AI is this magic pill that solves everything you want it to solve. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and you to go on to the topic of OpenClaw, like you see it a lot on X, where you see people complaining, saying, "I don't see all the hype. Like this thing sucks. Like it's not doing what I'm asking it to do. It's not." And I'll skim through their X account to see what they've been trying to build, and that's too general. Like they're wanting it to do everything, write code, take a 2 sentence idea and turn it into a working app. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, this I agree, and I also generally currently believe that we will see smaller, more specialized models on edge devices, as you've already seen. That's also why I'm not writing off Apple as much as other people do, because they have really good hardware out there. And the second the small models become good enough, they will be back. That's at least my prediction. I think it's a bit like we had this in the computer space as well. Maybe it doesn't work in that analogy, but we had these large mainframe computers, and today we're having smartphones that have, I would say, the same capabilities at least as early computers. And I expect something in that space as well here.
100%. I mean, to speak to that point, and again, I'll plug them because they've backed us. So we are part of HP, so Hewlett Packard's Garage 2.0 program, which is their AI incubator out in Singapore. What they have done, I would never have expected from a company like HP. And I hope nobody from there sees this, or hope they do. But it's like I always thought of HP, even Microsoft, Apple. I always saw as the one that was the leader, like cutting edge, and that might have just been through ignorance. But what HP have done is they've invested a lot of resources and time into producing AI ready machines, AI ready workstations, laptops that are running on device models already. And obviously, as you said, those models are going to continue to improve and get better and better. But they are building AI first machines, and they're already out on the market. So it is going to be interesting to see what Apple do, because I do agree, Apple have the reach to be able to just drop something groundbreaking. But I do think if they don't do it soon, we're going to see companies like HP, Lenovo, etc., sort of take over that space. Because the other thing with that as well is like enterprise cycles when it comes to upgrading your machines, that can be a 2, 3, 4 year cycle. And if HP are locking in clients now, it's going to be 4 to 5 years before these clients even think of switching to a different hardware provider. So it's a very smart play by HP.
Yeah, and it's also different markets. So I think Apple has the Apple Mac OS market, HP, Lenovo, and all these other players there, and the Windows world more and Linux world. So it's by design different. What I noticed really early on is that Apple started building the TPUs into their computers, I think back in 2020 or 21. So they had a vision behind that. They knew there was something coming. And the hardware is still, I think, really good. I don't watch the Windows world as much, but I would expect the same from the other companies. Going back to the Accelerator, I think maybe a few words on what is really great for a startup about joining an accelerator. What do you get out of it?
Yeah, good question. So that was a year in the making. They did quite a long shortlist because it was their first cohort. So they've never done this before, and they sort of, I guess it was sort of building the plane as they were flying it in terms of, what they knew that they wanted to do it. It was more so like, how do we make this beneficially useful to both parties? So it was a year of interviews and back and forth, and having to fly out to Singapore and do demos and pitches. And it officially kicked off in October. So there were 10 startups in the first cohort. what we get access to is number one, access to the enterprise itself, which as a startup is huge, massive. The fact that we're running campaigns within one of the largest companies in the world right now as a startup is mind blowing to me. I've had a lot of startups in my time. Enterprise won't look at you. But because we're a part of this program, they sandbox us. They work with us. They bring in mentors and allow us to actually put our product into their business, which has been great. We get access to a network of mentors that they've sort of hand selected and put together. That's everything from GTM specialists with proven track records, lawyers who deal with startups, venture capitalists, private investors, you name it. On top of that, they have built out a dedicated office space in Singapore. That office space is shared with Antler, which are one of the largest VC companies in the world. So they are the official VC partner of the Garage program. So we get access to them through, again, mentorship, the potential for VC funding if we so need it. And yeah, honestly, it's just the support. Like for us, that's been the biggest thing, just being able to bounce ideas, get their input, and guidance on, I guess, certain decisions that we've needed to make.
And I also think that the success to large companies, it takes a long time normally. If you know how B2B works, like with planning cycles, sales cycles are very long. Do they also introduce you to their clients? So do you also get access to their sales network?
Yeah, really good question. So, I love the team who head up the Garage program. So they are a massive enterprise. So you've got this team of agile forward thinkers that have set up and are heading up the Garage program. And it's been interesting to watch them operate within such a large enterprise because they're having to reshape the way that HP does things. So for example, like us going through cybersecurity to be able to get the tick of approval to dial within HP. Their cybersecurity requirements are set up for companies like Microsoft, AWS, and it's not suited for a startup. So they've really had to work on redefining how startups are going to be able to operate within HP. So that's I guess like the overall context I want to give on that. In regards to how they're putting us in front of their channel partners, what they do is they are constantly bringing us out to their internal events and allowing us to demo our products in front of channel partners, enterprise clients, and in doing so, creating, I guess, sort of that excitement around what we do, and then helping us navigate those conversations and being there to assist and support us. So, yeah, to directly answer the question, absolutely. Like they're bending over backwards to really help us succeed because our success just shows that their Garage programs are a success.
I think that is really awesome. And it also underlines what I always say is that you need people in your corner that want to see you win. Like if you have a backing of a large company that introduces you to your sales network, you shift the odds in your favor, and you need that when you're quite early. And when we look at it, I think in the current time, we will also see the advert more of solo founders. That's at least what I think. So with the current technology coming up, I believe that we will see really large companies in a sense of revenue built by an extremely small team. That's my prediction. What would you say if somebody starts out in that space, basically? What has changed and what are chances if you're small, and would even such a small, like a one-person startup, fit into an accelerator? What would you recommend?
Yeah, great point. And I'll put my my other hat on now. So I have my development company. We focused on, as I mentioned at the start, large scale web apps. So through my career working with developers, as a client to developers, it was really, really difficult to find developers who could scale a product. So you find most developers, decent developers, and I'm talking, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, could build a product, right? So you ask them what you need to be built, they build it, it looks great, it works, you click the button, it does what it needs to do. 10 users, 50 users get onto it and it's fine. And then 100 users come on and it falls to pieces, right? Like it hasn't been built for scale. So that was the market we really focused on. And we became really good at what we did. And I'm not going to lie, we had a really difficult time with the shift in, as you say, solo founders or non-technical people being able to now all of a sudden create products and apps themselves. And the difficulty in that shift was with my developers and especially my really senior guys who are, again, phenomenal at what they do. It was this awakening of, well, hang on a second, I've spent my entire life, my entire career to become as good as I am. And yes, the solo founder can't build something as solid as I could build it, but they could build something solid enough for paying users to get onto it and say, this is an amazing product or service and it solves my problem. Take my money. So it was a really difficult shift. We've embraced it. We've embraced it now for over a year. And sort of, with the leap, especially in the Codex model and Opus 4.6 and Gemini 3 Pro for UX UI, the game has changed. We definitely get less, let's say, smaller stuff. We used to get a lot of people come to us with ideas, 6 to 8 week build time. You'd be looking at 30, 40, 50,000 to build it, which was normal. Now you don't get many of them anymore, unless it's a bigger company or a medium-sized company. You don't see it. So yeah, to answer that question, I think yeah, taking the solo route is probably not a bad idea at this point. Unless you have an in with somebody who already has distribution, take the solo route.
Yeah, and what you're saying for non-technical people, I think they are Lovable, Bolt, Replit, these tools where you really can do everything in plain language. Now I haven't done that much of a deep dive because I'm technical myself and I would use Claude Code. But just spinning up a website with some pricing and just seeing if it converts, that's basically, I think you can do it in any of these tools in a day. And you see if it converts basically. So, and I say beforehand, that was really hard to do, like this market validation. If somebody's really willing to pay for something, you can now do really fast. And what I would expect, and that's really interesting to see as for you, is that these tools that are coded in Replit or Lovable, at least for now, will probably break at scale. So do you see that this is already shifting, that people are asking you to take over the operations and fixing some broken things down the road when they have validated their product?
Yeah, definitely. So that is where we have seen the increase is, solo founders or, teams of two that have built something that has been validated, and then they're stuck. And, as a technical guy, you know that if you don't understand how the auth communicates with the database, you're not going to be able to fix it. So yes, we have seen an increase in that type of work, which is great. But we also have now seen, we've been able to unlock another market, which is people with ideas that are willing to invest a smaller amount, let's say 5 to 10,000, because they really believe in the idea, but they don't believe in a, 30, 40, $50,000 worth into the idea. And so because we have these tools now, such as Cursor and Claude Code, we are able to rapid prototype or build an MVP fast scalable, right? So it's not going to break when you get your first 100, 200 users on it. This thing can scale, and they're able to validate an idea for less than 10,000. So we've seen an increase in those types of people as well, which is honestly, from my point of view, like I get my enterprise fix from AdaptiveX, but I really, really enjoy building out cool ideas with people that we otherwise wouldn't get to see because they never see the light of day because they're not willing to invest in the idea. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I really always like these people, like these startup people that are trying to build the future, and however small it is, with the idea in mind, and hopefully problem that is validated and to solve, but are generally excited about moving the world forward. Which brings me to another, I think, late product of yours. I read about ClawPacks. What is that?
ClawPacks, that's actually not a product of mine. That's so when I spun up my OpenClaw, I so my OpenClaw sits on a Mac Mini, and it has full access. So I'm confident enough in my ability to lock it down. Knock on wood, as we know in tech, like nothing is ever 100% secure. But yeah, so with my OpenClaw agent, I sort of just allowed it to do what it wanted to do. So ClawPacks, what it did, it's kind of irrelevant now, I think, because of all these what do you call it? Simple setups for setting up these agents. But what it did before they appeared was I said to it, do your research on X, do your research on Notebook and what have you, and come up with some ideas. And if you've come across an idea that you feel you can monetize, by all means, go for it. And so, yeah, what it did was it created a bunch of it's called personas or packs, be it like the soul and the memory and the tools for content creation, for managing social media, etc. And so what you actually saw there, it did all itself. So it created the packs, it created the Gumroad account. The only thing that I had to do is, or pinged me and said, hey, can you just go add the banking? Because obviously you can't, you need to add a bank account and verify yourself. So I did that. And then it uploaded the packs, created the landing pages, and added it to my X profile. I don't think it sold anything. I don't think. Let me have a look. Actually, I haven't even looked at that. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Smart. No, hasn't sold anything, but it's had 60 something views. So that's interesting. But yeah, that was just an autonomous agent on its own building that.
That's really also, I think the evolution in that space will be very interesting. We had like Zapier and these tools for quite a while. Then last year we had N8N, I would say, the agent builder, and now we are at OpenClaw, it's called now. I have the name changes are too frequent. And I'm really excited to find out what the next evolution of that is, because it doesn't feel like we're at the end. We have like every year, or Zapier didn't go that viral anymore, but it's still really, I would say, good business automation software, N8N as well, that stepped up, and now we have this ultra viral tool. What do you think will happen in that space? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I mean, like to give you an example of like how I use it on a day to day. Like, so I have mine connected to my Telegram and WhatsApp. So any idea I get is just a voice note straight away. It bounces back and forth with me, then it breaks it down, puts it into Asana, which is where I keep all my project management stuff. It has access to its own email, it's just a Gmail account. So it creates me Google Docs and spreadsheets. I will ask for it as an example to do. So I've got some crons that run every morning to do lead research. So it goes out and I won't get into the specifics of it because I want to keep it a little bit tight. Otherwise, I think everyone will flood it. But essentially, it does research on companies out there that may require development. It has that in my inbox every morning, broken up into Asana tasks. Then I, human in the loop, manually reach out. Because I do want to obviously keep an eye on things, especially if I'm public facing with it. I'll have it research in about a 10-minute period. We're currently doing VC funding for AdaptiveX. So I will have it put together a list of, 100 VC companies out there. It'll collect their LinkedIns. It will research them as an individual and their fund and their portfolio and write exactly why they would be a strategic fit for what we do. Then write a custom introduction message, which I will again manually go and double check and send it off to them. It'll do the same for agencies and consulting firms. So then I will manually reach out to them to, add to the partnership network. Where they sort of white label us and we do development work for them. It will help handle social media, be it X, be it Reddit, be it LinkedIn, in terms of research, drafting posts for me to look at. And that's just one day. There's some coding stuff in there. It runs all my SEO for various sites that we have. So monitoring Search Console, Google Analytics, content creation, so it drafts everything. And that's just in one day. So that's where we are now. And to me, that is living in the future. I'm 40. So, I'm back in pre-dial-up days almost. So to be living now, to me, it's already the future. Where we go from here? I don't know. I've got 2 young kids, a third on the way, and I honestly don't know what to say to them. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the prediction of the future is difficult. Usually, what I usually tend to say is that our economy works on exchange of goods for value. We placed this originally, we would trade fruits for something else. Now we invented money, so we make things easier. It's a value exchange, and I strongly believe that people will find places where they add value. That's the optimistic outlook into the future. And the future will be different than the past. And it's been over our lifetime. Beyond that, it's extremely hard to predict where we end. But what I feel is, and that's quite clear, that the change is getting faster. It's not decelerating. The change is accelerating. And we are now, for the first time, we have always had change. Now we are seeing it in space that until 23 seemed less prone to change than it is now. Like, it's kind of the people that are building the change are changing themselves. That's what I would call it.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to the idea, and Elon Musk talks about this a lot, that we are going to have a level of abundance that the human mind currently cannot comprehend, that life will shift completely where nobody will want for anything. So the entire structure of how we operate as society changes to something we can't imagine right now.
So I believe that we will have large productivity gains that I strongly believe in. If this will be distributed equal and abundance for all, we will see. It's usually, if we look at history, it's not played out like this, but it's so hard to see the future, and Elon has a very different context than I, for example, have. I think he has a very different insight into things than I have. So what I can easily imagine is that goods get a lot cheaper. So we have some kind of deflation. Still, our economy works on exchanging value for money that you provide, be it your time or something. And I think this still needs to work somehow. It's generally, I'm quite optimistic about the future. I'm not too worried. I think this is a big change that is coming, and it's coming quite fast, and it needs to be managed. That's what I think. And also, I strongly believe in this original idea of OpenAI, that there should be open source AI for the benefit of humanity, that everybody can exist, and that it shouldn't be locked away in silos. Basically, that's what I really strongly believe in, and I think that for humanity, it's probably better if these open source models are out there and everybody can use them and run them and build their own things. Same with OpenClaw. It's really great that it's an open source tool that everybody can use and it's not locked away in one corporation, I think. So this is a bit like the humanity perspective at it. So it's not the value captured by one company alone, but by the society. I think in this space, it's a good idea.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I am very optimistic about the future. It's a very different future. I think
Yeah,
that's
we'll find out.
yeah.
One advice for somebody who would start out now, basically, what would you give to a person that is, with all your experience, what do you think they should do?
Yeah. So I would say nothing is out of your reach. With the tools that we have now, nothing is out of your reach. There is unlimited knowledge. There is unlimited ways to build. You can reach anybody, any corner of the earth. Nothing's out of your reach. The only thing that's going to stop you from succeeding is yourself. And I think that's, it's always been said, but it's more true now than ever before.
That are very nice final words. Brad, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And
yeah, Niklas, thanks for having me.